Hey guys, I got a question from Jins. He said, as a beginner, I would like to ask what your opinions are on digital drawing and drawing tablets for a beginner artist. What your advice would be if we were to learn exclusively via digital, and how to go about not relying on Undo. So there are three questions here. He's asking about okay, so tablets. Um, what do you call exclusively digital. Don't mind my handwriting here. Digital, and he's also asking about Undo, the great curse of digital artists. Okay, so first thing, ideally you want to get a screen tablet. So if you don't have a screen tablet, the one that like just has the you know, what do you call it? Just the pad with buttons on it, with no screen. I don't know how they look nowadays. With a pen. And then it like hooks up with a wire. So this surface here is just, it's not a screen, but it's just like this flat plastic. This is fine. These are much cheaper. And you can start with this. And you can get used to that, you would have to develop that hand-eye coordination. Like I'm looking up at my screen, but I'm not looking down at my hand. Um, but I would recommend, if you can afford it, just a screen tablet. There's a lot of good brands. There's Wacom. They used to have the monopoly on this, but now there's like Huion, XP Pen. There's more. You can shop. I'm sure there's good brands. There's some like cheap ones. Wacom is the expensive ones, and they have high quality stuff. Wacom. I don't know how to pronounce it. Wacom. Um, so you want a screen. I'll put a smiley face on the screen, with a pen here. So ideally you want this, but my number one recommendation is probably iPad Pro. Um, because it's portable and it's a fully functioning computer. You can get other apps on it, and you get Procreate, which you can do many many things on. But if you need more power and more flexibility, and with on a desktop, you would want one of these. And because iPad Pro, like, I'm sure the sky's the limit, but the apps that are available on it are usually limited to illustration. If you want to do full animation production or full movie and music production, you can, but you would just have to really find the right tools. Um, Apple stuff in general, I don't have too much experience with. Pray for me, guys, that I get a job at Apple, because I have second interview coming up. So I hope I get that. Anyway, we want exclusively digital. So this is kind of interesting because I never trained this way. I was drawing in pencil and paper. Digital art wasn't really a thing when I was a little kid. I'm sure it was in Disney and Pixar and Star Wars, whatever they were doing over there. But digital art being accessible to many of us, I didn't really get access to that until I was in high school. So I grew up drawing on paper. So if you are going to do exclusively digital, number one recommendation, as you would recommend to any artist, these are two fundamental things that you just can't get around. So draw from life or reference. That's going to be just fundamentally true no matter what you're doing. And the other thing is just practice a ton. So these two things are like not really about digital, right? But these are things you have to do. The thing about practice is that it's muscle memory. So the muscle memory that comes with digital art, like pressing Control Z, um, for undo, or like pressing your buttons like B for brush and E for eraser, and just getting used to the shortcuts with your left hand. Um, Typically, I guess if you draw with your left hand, then you'd be using the keyboard with your right hand. However it is you want to set up your digital art setup, if you want to use the buttons on your tablet with one hand and the pen with the other, if you have the Windows Surface thing, that weird scrolly ball thing, whatever it is you're going to use, you got to practice, because if you're a traditional artist and you're practicing with the mediums, pencils, paints, markers, crayons, sculpture, whatever it is, you got to practice, and eventually you get used to the muscle memory. Well, part of the muscle memory with digital art is pressing the buttons, knowing the shortcuts. So that's part of it. What else? Since you're doing digital art, you would have to know your programs or apps. Know your programs or apps, whatever you want to call it. and you want to explore them and test them. See what works for you. See your favorites. Look up what is the industry standard. Look up what is open source. If you're poor, like me, explore and test. So, for example, I like using open source free programs. I like Audacity for audio. I like Krita for visual, and I like Olive for video editing. They're all free and open source. I feel like open source is an evolving industry. Just people just for the love of programming, um, put their work out there, and they're supported by donation. That's why I love Krita. Um, so yeah, that's a big one. If you like Clip Studio Paint, if you like Procreate, or if you want something really fancy like Adobe Creative Suite, like full thing, or whatever else has like monthly subscriptions, which I hate. You gotta explore them. And typically the cheap stuff is less powerful, but it's improving over time, and especially open source is really improving it. So I'm really a proponent of open source. If you want to get open source programs, it's really awesome. Open source. So what else? What else comes with being exclusive? Not exclusively digital. I draw on paper. Um, so this would be my recommendation. In parentheses, maybe don't be exclusively digital because you want to feel paint. Like if you're going to explore art, I think you should try different things. I think you should try drawing in a notebook with a pencil. The textures that you get with pens and pencils are going to be different. Sometimes you're going to want to imitate them in digital art. In digital art, we get these nice, smooth, perfectly circular brushes. Oh wow, I did not expect to get a Twitch alert on my YouTube video, but I hope you guys don't mind that. And thanks for the follow, Girl Cozy. Anyway, in digital art, we tend to have these perfect circled brushes and like stuff like that. But then there are brushes like this ink pen here, which if you zoom in, they're meant to imitate sort of the chaotic grittiness of traditional tools. So if you want to feel that, oftentimes you should stop using these perfectly circular brushes which we like to use like that, and feel what it feels to have that grittiness. A pencil, different softness and hardness of a pencil, charcoal, paint, clay sculpture. Even if you're a 3D modeler, it's good to do traditional sculpture with clay, with plaster. You want to learn how to do those things. So I would say experiment with traditional mediums as much as you can. Have a sketchbook that you can bring around with you. If you don't have an iPad, you can bring around with you. Bring just a paper sketchbook and a pencil. I would highly recommend it. Um, Maybe that's bad advice if you do want to be exclusively digital. If you really want to be stubborn about that, I'm not going to stop you. Maybe you can prove something to me that I don't know. Um, so I do want to address this question: undo, the great curse of digital artists. The fact that you can undo. This is what happens. Okay, you want to get the perfect line, and you never get the perfect line until all of a sudden, hey, that's the right one. Okay, so in order to build line confidence, you have to limit yourself. You have to tell yourself, um, I'm going to practice line confidence, line quality. You have to force yourself to not undo. And even then, I undo. It's just part of the muscle memory, right? So I am cursed. I just undid right there. But sometimes it helps you. So sometimes you can get the right line faster using undo than you could without it. But again, in order to train yourself not to undo, you have to limit yourself to a way that you cannot undo. Put a piece of tape on your Control Z. Um, just don't press it. Keep your hand off of the undo button. If I were to draw with one hand here, I'm taking my left hand off of my keyboard, and I'm forcing myself to draw that same drawing without the undo button. And that this limitation makes sure that I'm, trying to draw with line confidence. And another thing you can do, again, do traditional media. Use a pen, use a marker, use a Sharpie. Use something permanent that you can't go back on. This is going to train your line confidence. Um, or if you're a painter, just train the confidence in your mark making with painting. Because undo is all about it. It kind of destroys your confidence of mark making. Um, but again, sometimes it helps. The fact that you can perfectly undo something without, you know, messing up the paper on a with an eraser. Um, if you like undo, and now I'm gonna sort of turn the question around and say if you like it and find it useful, I have a wonderful recommendation. I'm actually gonna make another video about this as a recommendation, but if you're watching it in this video, then you're blessed to hear this. Change your Control Z. If you can change your Control Z to something else that uses one finger, it's better. That includes redo. So undo and redo, you should change the buttons. So I have my undo set to T, and my redo is set to Y. That's just convenient for me. I just use my index finger. The reason is Control Z down here on the keyboard, right here. This hurts your hand. Over time, this hurts your hand. If you're pressing Control Z, you're doing it with your pinky finger and your ring finger, right? That's bad for your hand. Because I noticed over time, as I grew as a digital artist, my left hand started to hurt a little bit, and it was like kind of getting stressed. You know, it's not a natural movement pressing like doing like this all the time. It's much more natural movement to press things with your index finger. Um, this might end up making you guys hit undo more, but that is a big recommendation from me as a digital artist. I'm gonna make another video about that. So hope that helped you, Jins. I'll talk to you guys later. Again, if you guys have questions, I would love to answer them through these videos. Thank you all. Love you all. Bye bye.